Hi! On the Woodpecker today, I'm making this gate to prevent our grandson from falling down the stairs. Time flies. Our grandson is now crawling, which means more things to check. But most of all, we always have to remember to put the gate at the top of the basement steps. But we don't like this gate because it's not really easy to set up. I want something in wood that can fit around the post I made. So I begin by drawing an inverted mold of my post. I'm not really sure if my idea will work, so I will make a test with a piece of 2x8. But before bringing this to my jointer, I make sure the wood is clean. Then I can start my test. This is the maximum my CNC can cut in Y. I made a mark on the corner. I moved the second mark of my piece of wood up to this mark. Here you can see the mark on my guide and the mark on the piece of wood, which is also where the cutting stopped. Now I can continue. Two sections are done. I'm missing the last one. But I don't know what I was thinking because I started the cut at the wrong place. When I noticed that, I stopped right away. After making a modification by hand, I put that back and continue. Finally, I can try that on my post. It's not 100% accurate, but I figured that with some modifications, it will be okay. The gate will be made of oak, just like the posts. For this, I'm going to use those moldings that I've stored for several years. They have a strange shape, so I have to cut them. When I finally have enough pieces, I glue them together. But it's not thick enough, so I add a plank of oak on top. Eventually the glue up is dry enough to make it straight, and I glue the plank on top. And again, I need to wait for the glue to dry. But the plank was wider than the glue up. I have to fix this. After cutting this to the right length, I can mark the 3 transitions. Put this on the CNC and start the cut. But I went too fast and the bit broke. Oak is way harder than spruce. I change the bit, slow my feed rate, and start over again. But my troubles are not over yet. My glue up was thicker than the 2x8 and I cut too deep. I will have to make a patch here. Again, I need to wait for this to dry so I can fill the small gap at the end with epoxy. Okay, it's almost nothing, but I still want to fill it. Then it's time to go back to the CNC. Eventually, I have both ends done. Let's say that the process is not really fast, but I still need to cut the middle part. A good chunk is done. There's only the top curve left to cut. After countless hours, it's done. But at one time I misplaced the piece of wood and I get this hole. I will fill it with paste epoxy. When the epoxy is hard, I can sand that. But when I try it out, disaster. This is far from being okay. I need to remove the bump in the middle, which is not at the right place. I have to admit that if I had done it like that in the first place, it would have taken way less time. But it's too wide and I need to cut two pieces. Finally, after all those misadventures, it will work. I trace the shape of the post because I need it for the holes I need to drill. To drill the holes in line on both pieces, I stick them together with double-sided tape. I drill them with the drill press. But those holes are not deep enough. I only use them as a guide. But they were only pilot holes. I have to re-drill the top holes to the size of a screw. The screws I'm going to use are super long. To help them, I pre-made some threads. Now I can try this in place. I'm super happy with how it finally ended up. But I need some hinges. They will be done with this piece of oak. The first thing to do is to make sure it's square. I mark the center of the end and turn the middle round. Next, I drill a hole in the center. But my bit is not long enough, so I have to finish with a longer one. Then I cut this at 45 degrees. I make the cut as round as possible. My idea is to make a hinge that will close by itself. In the end, this doesn't work as expected, but nonetheless, I make another one. There's still so much to do. I still have the door to make. I also use the moldings for the door. I need 4 wire pieces to this thickness, so I make 2 glue ups. When the glue is dry, I can surface all the wood I need to make the door. To make sure I have 4 pieces to the exact same length, I cut them together. Now I can glue the first frame. In fact, this glue up has no structural value. I only made it so the pieces will stay together. Next, I take the measurement of the central tier and cut them. After seeing that they fit, I mark for the vertical railings. I'm going to cut notches for them. Since I want them to be at the same place, I stick both rails together and cut them. Next, I can glue both rails in place. I wait a bit and reclaim my clamps so I can glue the remaining 2 pieces. Without clamps, it was a bit difficult. Before going any further, I drill some holes for the hinges. Now it's time to take care of the vertical railings. I mark their length and cut them. This is what the inside of the door will look like, but all the pieces need a small round over. Now I can glue the rest of the door. First, the vertical railings, then the 4 pieces that go on top. This takes a lot of clamps. I have rarely seen my clamp rack that empty. Now I need to wait for the glue to dry so I can pass that on the jointer. I still need to take care of the hinges. They need a small piece of wood to push them from the side. Then this hole has to be filled. The easiest way is to route a quarter round on all the corners. When I do this, I always leave both ends square. This adds support. After cutting the square part, I can glue this in place. I also need rods for the hinges. I cut them to length. Make a round over on the front. But the pieces of wood I glued are too thick. Here it is. This is how the hinges will fit. Now I need to mark and drill pilot holes. There's not a lot of space to screw, so I remove them and pre-thread the pilot holes. Now it's easier. The other part of the hinge is much easier to make. It works, but unfortunately, it doesn't close by itself like I was hoping. Well, we'll have to live with it. But since it's working fine, I remove all the hinges and glue them in place. But it's not over yet, because I need something that will stop and hold the door. For that, I'm going to use the glue up I made to test some fancy joinery. I really like the joinery, but it's time to get rid of it. This part of the gate will be assembled with box joint. This needs more pieces. This is one support. Before going any further, I will check if it's the right length. This will be perfect. Now I just need to glue this. There are only a few options to hold this in place. I can't put clamps, so I just make sure it's square and leave it to dry like that. When the glue is dry, I cut the excess. I still have two more small pieces to cut. Here, I stick them together on a sacrificial piece of plywood and cut the box joints. Then I glue them together. The next morning, the glue is dry and I can sand the fingers excess. This L has to be glued, but before that, I round over one inside corner. Now it can be glued in place. But I need some kind of a spring. For this, I'm going to use part of a broken bandsaw blade. I really need to get rid of the sharp teeth. This spring will be screwed on this block of wood. This wedge will be on the other side to act as a latch bolt. But first, I need to drill some holes. Drilling through hardened steel is a pain. I think I spent more time resharpening the bit than making the holes. Eventually, it's done, and I can mark where to put the screws. One thing I can say is that it's way easier to drill through wood than hardened steel. It's now time to try this on site. Wow, this works even better than I expected. But it wouldn't be useful if René had to hold it in place each time our daughter will visit. So I drill a hole in the center of a block. I'm a little bit disappointed because the drill bit wandered inside the block and the exit is not centered. But it's not that important anyway. I cut two pieces and glue them in the center of the supports. Then I just need to wait for the glue to dry. Next, I round over all the sharp corners, that's small fingers, can have access to. Now I can make the final sanding and clean all this. For the finish, I wipe on some Danish oil. It's the same one I used a long time ago on the guardrail posts. Then I just need to wait a full night before putting the gate in place. But I realized that I should have made the side blocks more secure. So I add 4 screws to each block. Finally, I can install the gate. When it's time to put the latch bolt, I hold both pieces with a clamp. They will stay in place with a length of clothesline. After screwing one end, I can figure out where to cut the line and put the clips in place. Now I can fix this in place. This won't move with all the tension on this line. I'm super happy with the vertical support, even if it was hell to make. But the most satisfying part is to see how well it's working. Now we can relax when our daughter comes with our grandson. See you soon for another episode of The Woodpecker.